Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot. This is going to be an interesting reading because this one is another one that comes from the inbox. I was talking about this yesterday in the end of the extended for the soulmates reading. I'm going to get into one that's in the inbox. I was trying to decide what order to do them in, and we're going to talk about interaction between your energies and kind of the back and forth of what's happening in those energies. Because since April, in particular, although with some of you this is ongoing, since April in particular, there has been a lot more closeness. So your person's energy came a lot closer to you, and all of a sudden it was a different set of coping mechanisms that you needed. So they may still not have been in great contact, or maybe not in contact at all, but all of a sudden their proximity was a lot more. So they were a lot closer, and it's like having to play by a whole different set of rules. But it's also created some, I guess, feedback, or a little bit of things being like when you have a guitar that gets too close to an amplifier and you get the feedback. It's almost that kind of feedback that's happening in some cases. So we're going to do a reading on that. It'll of course be a general reading, and it's for this collective, so it's not going to resonate with everybody. But as I always say, it shouldn't resonate with everybody, because it is in particular for this collective. So if you find that it is resonating with you, you may be part of this collective. You may want to think about subscribing, or maybe checking out, or maybe checking out some of those older messages out there, just to see kind of what might have come out that might be useful for you in those other messages. They're all very much connected. We're gonna start here by looking at the general energy, that energetic backdrop, but especially keep in mind that this is what we're going to, this is the lens through which we're going to be looking at this interaction between you and your person. So this is that general energy that's kind of in the background of everything. And this is important to note. So we've got the Three of Teacups, and we've been seeing this card in reverse quite a bit here. It's meant more than one thing. It's not meant the same thing every time it comes out. In this case, though, it's kind of about a stoppage of emotion. It's a little bit of both things. So in some cases, it's been about a stoppage of emotion, particularly as we looked at it in the June refresh reading. There was an Ace of Cups in the upright, and then there was a Three of Cups. It was okay, listen, there's going to be something in here that you have this beautiful flow of emotion going on, and this is something that stops the emotion up. It's something that stops that flow of emotion. So I'm getting a little bit of that, the flow of emotion that's kind of being interrupted, but I'm also getting that it is associated with an additional energy, like that third party energy, which is the other thing that we sometimes see when we see the Three of Cups come up, whether it's in the upright or in the reverse. Sometimes it refers to a third energy. In this case, it's a little bit of both, but it's a little bit of a shutdown that's happening as a result of that third party energy. There may also be a third party energy on your side that's causing you to do a little bit of a shutdown, and not necessarily for all bad reasons. So if some of you are in relationships with people that you really like, and you really love, and this additional soulmate situation is a complication, and so having your third party energy come in and become larger is not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be very distracting and tough to think about. And I mention that not because it's going to be relevant to everybody, but it's going to be relevant to a few of you. The other piece of it is, I just want you to know everyone's going to have some kind of additional energies that are playing on them. So what constitutes that third party energy with them and what constitutes that third party energy with you could be very different, but they're both having the impact of slowing the flow of some of that emotion. Ooh, let's see. We've got the Temperance card. This is like that tightrope that we talk about, the tightrope, and then we've got the Seven of Coins and the Knight of Cups. We've been seeing a lot of these cards in the last couple of days. These are, there's 78 cards in the deck. The odds of the same ones coming out of different decks repeatedly is probably fairly low, but we see it a lot, and that's part of what helps us kind of pull out those, just pull out the patterns. So the Temperance, this is about the tightrope, and sometimes I talk about the tightrope being, everything that you're doing and everything that you kind of are working on, and this is the tightrope of balance, or the balance that allows you to stay on that tightrope and be able to accomplish what you need to accomplish. When this is in the upright and you are achieving the hard won balance, it's a really positive feeling, but I feel like here it's threatened by the fact that there's this emotion that doesn't want to flow, and this third party energy. The third party energy may or may not be helping with the balance. And it really kind of depends on the situation. I feel like with you, it may be helping in some ways, at least it's exposing you to some lessons that are a little bit less hardcore. And in your person's case, it may not be quite the same flavor. So we still have that Seven of Coins and the feeling of pondering whether or not there's been enough of an investment, and just kind of, you don't know how this is going to turn out. And in particular, your person doesn't know how this is going to turn out. This is an energy that's been coming out with them for a long time, or at least for the last few readings, we've been seeing some Seven of Coins, and the concept has been coming out for a long time. But they look back, they evaluate, and they say, I'm really not so sure about what has come before here. Then we have this Knight of Cups, which is a reminder of that energy that's starting to kind of crop up in you. There's a little bit of it cropping up in your person, but this is really your energy. That Knight of Cups is, that's that glow, that thing that's going to attract everyone to you. So that's starting to come up in the energy even now. We saw it coming in the refresh readings, and it's very magnetic, and it's all about you. It's coming up from inside you. But your person's fears, especially about I'm going to just leave it like this, where she's looking at him, because it's like, this is the person who's trying to determine if they've made a significant enough investment, and this person over here is becoming more and more attractive by the day. We have the Hierophant here that's showing up in reverse. This is an unorthodox sort of involvement, or an unorthodox sort of connection that you and your person are building, or kind of shifting into at this time. So you've already built a connection, but you're shifting into something that's a little bit different. And I talked about the proximity of those energies creating that. It's a little unorthodox, and that's really all that wants to come out of that card. But I would say this is part of, we're digging into the energy now of why, of the energy of like the question that we're going to ask, because this is about the interaction between you. This is about the back and forth of the energies between you. And now that they're much closer, that feels a little different for some people. And it actually, it feels a little different for almost everybody, but it feels differently. I mean, it feels different, and it makes you kind of, there's, like I said, a different set of coping mechanisms that's required. So you've got the Ace of Swords coming out in the reverse. This is truth that is not being acknowledged, and we know that there's some truth coming out. We also know that this Ten of Cups is, it represents that lesson. When we see it come out, oftentimes it represents that lesson that we've been getting around what do you do when you come face to face with the thing that is, your dream come true, the best thing that you can imagine. And there's a level of fear that arises when you see something that could be potential success in some people. It doesn't arise in everybody, definitely arises in your person, but it is also around, and you may feel a little bit of it too, but this feels like primarily their energy. But like I was saying, it is also around not being able to maintain that, not being able to maintain eye contact with the truth. It's not necessarily that you're trying to get rid of the truth or not acknowledge the truth, but just so much, there's so much intensity that comes with that. It's not necessarily beginner's level. It's a tough truth to accommodate. Let's see here. We've got the Seven of Wands. This is a lack of confidence. People feeling like, and this is both of you probably, feeling like you're a little bit off your game, or not necessarily sure about all of the steps that you want to take. That's pretty common, but it's extra heavy in today's energy. So you may kind of, where some days you just sort of groove with it, on this day, it's more of a, oh, okay, I got to think a little bit more about things. And then you get to the other side of it and you're like, why am I doing this? And so this is the why am I doing this? The Five of Wands is that I'm not really going to struggle. I'm not really going to create additional challenges for myself today. So it offsets this Five of Wands, or I'm sorry, this Five of Wands in the reverse offsets this Seven of Wands in the reverse nicely, and kind of helps to remind you of what it is that you're doing, what it is that you're capable of. But the Fool card here, that's probably the most interesting energy that's coming out. it feels very tied to this Knight of Cups energy, but isn't necessarily yours, whereas this Knight of Cups energy is. Now, though, we're starting to get into a place where the energies between you and your person are a little bit more muddled because you are a little bit closer together. So it makes it a little bit interesting to read, but it's like I'm able to follow along, but it's almost like the wisps of smoke that are curling together, which is kind of the idea of this, you know, behind this question a little bit. So as I'm going to try and articulate the question again, but maybe add a little bit more to it. So we were talking about the interaction between your energies and the back and forth, specifically, and one person termed it as the passing of lessons back and forth. So sometimes you're working on different elements of very similar lessons, and particularly when we talk about those big three items that have come up here. A lot of times when we see that Five of Pentacles, that's the card where it will come out, and a lot of fives, but it'll come out more, especially on that Five of Pentacles, and it's about that fear of rejection, the betrayal, of the abandonment. These are typically older issues that are cropping back up because they're being triggered by you and your person to each other. So that's what I mean when I'm saying it's kind of sometimes working on different elements of the same lessons. But at this point, with your elements or your energy being so close together, it's like you have to figure out how to deal with their energy being so intertwined with yours that in some cases it does get tough to tell you apart, because it gets like these wisps of smoke. And honestly, you are so much of the same thing that it's not surprising that it can be hard to tell you apart. But now that your energies are closer together, like they're just closer. Your person is hanging out on the other side of that door that you are theoretically keeping open, you know, and you can feel it. It's just a different kind of feeling. The other piece is the fatigue that you may feel in this process. I talk about it being a mountain sometimes. Sometimes I talk about you getting tired. It's not just healing that's happening during this climb, though. It's also rest and rejuvenation, so you can't pass that part up. But let's talk about the fatigue that happens in the climb. Let's talk about passing lessons back and forth, and just how do you interact with this person when your energies are so close together. And it can become very difficult to tell you apart. And I think we see that illustrated here with the general energy. Particularly, my favorite example is the one with the Fool and the Prince of Cups, or the Knight of Cups. So we've got the Strength card coming out in reverse, but I think there was another one that came out that turned over. I could swear another one. Yes, here we go. We had a whole block of them turn over, but we just want the top one. All right, the Six of Spears. So that's like the Six of Swords. And we were just talking about that fear, or not fear. With the Six of Spears in the reverse, this is that energy never quite slowing down. We've seen a lot of this card in the last couple days as well, but it's that energy just kind of not slowing down to where it does get a little bit difficult to remain like energetic about it. It's easy to get tired because this climb, I talk about it being up a mountain where I constantly am saying, okay, don't forget to look to see how far you've come. You can look to see how far up the mountain you still have to go. That's a daunting thing. When you turn around and see how far down the bottom is, it's going to be part of what helps to move you forward. So when the energy won't slow down, just remember to create a moment of peace within yourself. Slow down time, like we talked about in that meditation video and that mantras video. It's not really slowing down time, but it's slowing down your perception of it, giving you a little bit more of a chance to think about things. And that's where you turn around and look down that mountain and make sure that you are considering how far you've come. Because like I said, this is also supposed to be about rest and rejuvenation. Looking back down that mountain gives you a little bit of that rejuvenation. The Strength card in reverse, though, that tells me there's a lot of fear that's kind of impacting you here that you had learned to work without because you were maybe experiencing something a little different before your person's energy came back home to roost. Because now it's a lot closer to you, and some of the anxiety and depression that is happening within the connection is starting to kind of bleed off onto you. That wasn't originally coming from you. You may have your own anxiety and depression to concern yourself with, but this is how are you going to deal with the fact that you now have somebody else's feelings that are so close to yours. And it is definitely a little bit confusing. It's kind of swirling around when you look at that. I've noticed it increasingly swirly that way, but I guess that's not necessarily all that strange. And a lot of times we're dealing with this energy that's like twin flame type energy anyway. And I shudder to use the term because twin flames are a very specific thing that it can't really be that many people who are experiencing that. It's supposed to be a very finite number of souls. However, there is a twin flame like dynamic that the vast majority of the people in this collective are following. So whether it's true twin flame or, you know, the one that we're all calling that because it seems like it's exactly the same. It really, the dynamic is the same. You end up with that person who you both come in, you trigger each other, you have these lessons that have cropped up, and you need more of that connection to your higher power and your higher self. That's how you're going to get connected to them and start to sort some of these things out, by the way. But then you come in, there's this mutual triggering, and then one takes off running and the other one is theoretically potentially going to chase. I haven't seen as much chasing in this collective as I sometimes do in this dynamic, but the rest of it really stands to reason. And so as they're coming closer to you and you're realizing you're really one and the same, you're really made from the same elements, you're really made from the same energy, it can be a little bit frustrating and a little bit confusing. There can be a desire to want to put some control on this and try and just say, all right, here, I'm going to understand this. I'm gonna make something that out of this that makes sense. Don't push too hard. Pushing too hard is going to tend to trying to gain control is going to cause you to actually more lose it. The other thing to note is the impact of additional energies. So this third party energy that we see over here that's sucking some of the overall energy out of the big picture. It's just very it's extra impactful. It's always impactful, but it's extra impactful right now. And we've been doing some additional third party readings because we've been getting more questions on it, but also the energy around that third party has been a little bit thicker. It's like there's a greater threat associated with your energy, the energy of your connection as the healing starts. And so you're going to feel a little bit of that. If you're feeling energy from them, which a lot of you are, you're going to feel some of the frustrations around this Three of Cups, this third party for them. So there's household dynamics involved and assumptions about what life with you would be like. So we're getting the Queen of Coins with that feeling of comparison again. Yesterday, we had the Queen of Coins and the Eight of Coins, which peaked out there as an almost honorable mention, but not quite. We had both of those come out as comparison type cards, where I've noted in the past that a lot of times it's the Nine of Coins that actually comes out as more of a comparison, where your person is comparing themselves to you. In this case, it's not so much comparing themselves to you, although it is a comparison energy. It's comparing their current situation, their current environment, their living environment, their house, their job, the things that surround them, with what it would be like when it was, if it was with you. And in some cases, they have a good idea because they've been with you. And in other cases, they've really not been able to get close enough to truly have the answer to that question. But it's something that's taking up a lot of their brain space and a lot of their time. I think we need to, as we get into the extended, understand a little bit more about like, what is this like for your person to be having these, because they're feeling some of your stuff too. The ability to shield away from that is kind of next level. And what I mean by that is you can kind of shield from, if you're empathetic, if you're an empath, you're able to feel other people's emotions anyway. And in this case, what you would use to shield yourself from other people's emotions is not working against your person, and because you're not really wanting to shield against their emotions, and it's part of you. So it's kind of a different feeling, different dynamic. It really is playing by a different set of rules. So we have this Eight of Wands that's coming out here, and this Eight of Wands, it's in reverse because it's the choking up of the emotion. This is the part where, and it's partially because of this third party energy, but it's not all because of that. There's more to it. Overall, this new playing field, this new set of rules is very confusing to your person. And so they made this happen. They were the ones that manifested you initially for that first soul connection that you had. And you may have been manifesting each other, but they played the greater role in that. And now here, they've come closer to you. In some cases they've reached out, in some cases they haven't, but it's their doing that causes them to be a little bit closer, and yet they find themselves saying, I'm in no way ready for this. I haven't learned what I need to learn, and I'm not ready to make a decision. Here's that decision. The Two of Swords is that decision. The Queen of Swords is in the reverse, the inability to make a decisive move, inability to make a decision about this. They feel like they're suddenly kind of sputtering and not being sure. They're sputtering and choking. That's what it feels like, like they're having trouble with swimming all of a sudden, but it's just swimming through a regular situation that they themselves created. And it's really interesting because it's like they bring you closer, or they get closer to you, and then they have no idea what to do once you're there. And we've seen that before. Remember, we started seeing that in the end of April, when we started seeing a lot of people getting contacted by their other person who was in no way ready to have this conversation in most cases. Who bailed again, who blocked you again, who they had no idea what to do with you once they caught you. It was that kind of energy. Well, they're still there and they still don't know what to do. And so it's got this air of, you need to do something. It's putting them in a crossroads, and they have no idea how to move forward. They don't feel like they're equipped. They are absolutely not equipped. But part of it is honestly just going to be moving forward. And right now they're feeling a little bit frozen. Okay, so that gives us a little bit of the answer. We're going to still look into it when we get into the extended. So we're seeing a little bit of what this is like for them. And we have some idea of what it's like for you. We're going to get into that a little bit more deeply, but it's not a comfortable scene. It's like they're drawn to you, and we keep seeing this. They're drawn to you, but they're not ready to make the connection. Let's look at your focus before we go to the extended. Let's look at your focus and just kind of see. Your focus has been super interesting lately. I remember the June general reading, I think it was, the extended, or not the extended, there was no extended on that one, but the June refresh reading for just general energy. At the end of it, I was like, you guys, this is a great time to be a part of this collective, because there is a wonderful energy that happens for you here. And it was turning that page, or I'm sorry, that Knight of Cups energy on whatever you needed to. I dropped some cards, but they fell face down. We won't use those. Sometimes I drop them face up and they want to be part of the reading. You never know. I'm not super concerned about the surface that they fall on, but sometimes it does make a bit of a difference in the way that I interpret the energy. This one wants to take a little while to come out, because this is going to be the focus for you, given everything else that is sitting on this table right now. So given what we see about how to interact with this energy that is so close to you and becoming indiscernible to you, that's a new one for me. And not really, because like I said, it's been kind of happening for a little while, but I'm really starting to see it. And especially as I come in here to ask about it specifically, it seems like today's energy really lends itself to that. So we've got a card of judgment, and this is that card of looking within. It's I mentioned in a previous reading, I've got one deck where there's this person in the judgment card. There's this person that's kind of floating over the whole scene, and they're watching it. And this judgment has that sense of that. It's kind of like looking at the overarching concepts and everything, and just looking at the big picture. And that is what you're being encouraged to do right now. Step back and take a look at the big picture. It's kind of got that King of Swords sort of feel to it. But definitely just understanding what's happening in front of you. This is a moment where you want to create that bubble of time for yourself to turn around and see what your progress has been, and just kind of get a feel for how far up that mountain you are, what all has to happen there, and really just kind of understand where you sit. It may not be a time for rejuvenation, but it is a time for, okay, some answers come to you. So this is the Lover's card, not usually associated with a lot of answers, but in this case it is. It's a confirmation. There's a confirmation of something that is already in front of you. You just have to see it, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything as far as how you're going to behave. It's a confirmation as you look into the energy between you and your person. There's a sort of a tension, and it's a super, are we we sure about this? Is this really happening? Kind of feeling. So you end up with additional confirmation. Yes, in fact, this is really happening. There is an energy in you of, all right, let's move, let's go do something. But it's not time for that yet. Things have not slowed down enough. We have the Six of Swords here in the reverse again, talking about the energy not having slowed down and you having to create that bubble within that crazy maelstrom for you to turn around, see how far you've come, and really just kind of handle that fatigue. So you need a little bit of rejuvenation, and you've got a new perspective, I think, on that in particular. But you also have this new trust in yourself. This is what I really like to see. That's the Seven of Swords. We've got the Hanged Man and the Seven of Swords. It's the Hanged Woman and the Seven of Swords. So the Seven of Swords in reverse, that is very much about this trust that you're feeling in yourself. The Hanged Woman is about your new perspective that you have on being able to stop and take that moment for yourself. That is something that is going to be incredibly important as you start to feel that fatigue during the climb. You're passing these same lessons back and forth, so to some degrees you can relate to the things that your person is going through, but it does look pretty different for them. The key is that self-trust. You got the indication earlier in one of the readings that you needed to do some inner child work. This is going to be the result. You're going to feel this way more and more as you progress through that inner child work. So there is still something that's in the way of you moving into the place that you want to go. You've got, this is the Ace of Wands. It's in the reverse. Something is still in your way. Some new truth still has to be observed and basically celebrated. There's an importance around the balance of your energy, but also your ability to kind of jump in with both feet and be willing to do what has to be done. The Page of Wands is willing to do what has to be done. We also have this Ten of Wands saying, okay, but moving into this is about really too much on your plate, too much to have to hold on to. And so there's going to be some rejiggering. There's going to be some setting things down. That's going to be what enables you to really take off and fly, because right now it's like there's just too much weighing you down. And this would enable you to actually get off the ground. It's like the plane is too heavy. And that's why the Ace of Wands can't really set you on fire. But set your soul on fire. Setting you on fire sounds like kind of a bad thing. So we have the Empress card in reverse. Watch for this. This is going to be kind of the linchpin in your success, but it could be something that really gets in the way of it. Right now you've got an imbalanced feminine energy that you're working through, and it's almost going to it's like insecurity that is moving toward almost a codependent sort of feeling. So if you're not sure about that, or if you feel like you've pulled yourself out of the codependent swamp, go back and look at the symptoms for codependency and possibly emerging from or healing from codependency, and check out those symptoms and see where you're still getting tripped up. Because with this new perspective, you're going to be in a place where you may be able to make short work of some of those things. So it's an opportunity. Even though it's an opportunity for something difficult, this is one you take. This is absolutely one you take. Let's learn a little bit more about that when we get into the extended too, because I love the idea of being able to jump into something, and this has been a hard nut to crack, and for you to be in a good place where you can just say, all right, I'm going to be able to shoot the gap here. That's a really wonderful thing. But we're also going to get into a little bit more of this interaction between your energies. We just need to understand what you can do that would help you to better interact with these energies, and also let's get a better feel for what's happening in that with your person. So we can tell that there's a decision that they have to make. They're having a hard time with it, and it's like they've caught up to you and now they don't know what to do. But let's get more of a feel for that. So that's what we'll do when we go into the extended. I look forward to seeing you there. If you want to follow me there, the link is down below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you again in tomorrow's reading.